Hello everybody, it's Max with Crypto Talk now. In today's quant coverage, we're going to outline a few things that were based on a follow-up from the last particular video. I gave you guys a taste of what's to come, and let's face it, we're here right now. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and kick it into today's quant coverage. I'm going to go ahead and start it off with Coach JV. Because if anything, listen to this particular message. I'm going to full screen this. And I think he hits the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned, especially when it comes to that quant connection. Now, he does put in hashtag quant right here. So, yeah, a lot of this applies to some of these other ones. For the purposes of this video, I want you to draw that particular quant connection. And if anything, it's a really good prelude for what is coming up here on our particular outline for you in regards to quant. So it says, here is my prediction for 2023. Again, straight from Coach JV. The American dream is dead, and those who do not wake up could lose everything they fought for. Now, this is, let's face it, some of the doom and gloom and so on. A lot of what he mentions in this particular video clip, you can definitely draw that particular quant connection. So let's go ahead and listen to it. It's about 3 minutes, and we'll come right back for the outline. Here we go.
So here are my predictions for 2023. Now, one thing I want to share with you guys, if you look back at my YouTube channel last 2 years, a lot of the things I talked about have come true, okay? So here's the things that I believe are going to happen. Not financial advice, don't make any moves based on what I'm saying. So we are going to be moving to an asset-backed currency starting 2023 going into 2025. Russia made the first move by the largest bank in Russia going to a gold-backed currency at one of the largest banks. Number two is on the back end of 2023, you're going to start to see a big dip in the housing prices. The reason why I'm not a professional in the housing market, I want to make it very clear. Due to wise counsel, I have many people on my team that understand this much deeper than I do. There's many things happening. Number one, interest rates are skyrocketing, making it for the normal everyday person almost impossible to get a home. Mortgage prices have doubled. Rent prices are through the roof. So people getting a house is very difficult. Also, all these companies like Open Door, things like that are struggling with inventory. So they're going to start to lower their prices to get rid of that inventory. With the interest rates skyrocketing, going into Q2 and Q3, companies are now burning up their capital. They're not printing money into oblivion. They're not buying junk bonds off of these companies anymore. Now you're going to see who's actually a company and not a zombie company. Now remember, America, every single dollar in America is somebody else's debt. With interest rates super high and the ability to borrow very low, if there's not credit running through the system, that means there's not salaries running through the system. And when the ability to borrow slows down, the ability to pay people slows down. So you're going to see a destruction of the middle class in America. You're going to start to see the dollar's dominance start to cool down. And at the same time, you're going to start to see countries, central banks, rolling out a central bank digital currency. You're going to see the narrative switch from crypto fraud to crypto being here to stay. Blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, on-demand liquidity. And now you're going to hear your banks start to talk. Not only the rich clients can use cryptocurrency, but the regular everyday clients can do it to transact, to move money at the speed of light. The main role is going to get everybody, the 2.9 billion unbanked people, into the system. So you're going to see a destruction of the middle class. You're going to see a big stock market pullback. You're going to see assets at very low prices. Here's the great news. Everybody gets excited when it's very expensive. Everybody gets excited in bull markets. That's when you get wrecked. The bear market is when you build wealth. The bear market is when you get real companies at real discounts that can yield you some huge profits. I'd be getting access to cash right now.
Yeah, exactly. Cash right now. Think about what you mentioned in regards to the bear market. That is truly correct. That is where the wealth is basically made. Now, in regards to this, I'm going to come back into the frame. I want to state this, okay? When it comes to not just crypto, but when it comes to stocks, right? What is one of the main things we know about a great stock or a great crypto? is if it has real, for instance, supply and demand. Those two things is the magic formula for us to see this go up to crazy prices that we never seen before, right? The upside potential is what we're talking about right here. So my key takeaway before we get more into this is think about what Coach JV basically mentioned, right? There's a lot of demand for what is going to be coming here soon in 2023. And that demand is CBDCs, whether we were for it or not. I understand all the conspiracy and so on. You know, people feel as though it's the devil's money. I get that. I totally get that. But the reality is I feel as though that these particular ones are going to be here whether we like it or not. And that is simply a reality. How can we take advantage of these particular opportunities to give us the generational wealth that we deserve, right? All your life, I don't know about you, but all my life I worked hard for getting where I'm needed to be and so on. It's simply not enough. I myself am a school teacher. School teachers don't make enough money, to say the least. So how do we get over the hump? It's we recognize and have researched these particular ones to provide us just that generational wealth that we're looking for. Generational as in passing it on, that particular legacy, right? Quant, for me personally, is one of those ways, is my meal ticket, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it into this next part right here. And again, I wanted to start off because that is a great way to get things going. And check this out for yourself. So we gave you kind of a taste of all this. Now, this is where it all begins. All right. So shout out to the Reddit community, because if it wasn't for the Reddit community, let's face it, you wouldn't have seen GameStop survive. You can even apply it to certain cryptos. All right. So this is 11 months ago. It says MIT Boston Fed go public with CBDC. What? Project Hamilton. One of the main key takeaways I want you to have here is the Project Hamilton connection. You get this particular link. The guy, of course, posts that it doesn't mention Quant, but you know what's up. Well, I'll state this. By the time we get done with this, you will absolutely have the proof that it's Quant. This next guy basically says, Quant CEO has held meetings at Boston Fed, and Quant is very close to MIT. Yeah, we know that. In collaboration to develop ODAP. And they co-authored a CBDC paper. On top of that, let's jump into it. So there's this particular article in our particular deep dive that mentions back on February 3rd, 2022, MIT Boston Fed went public with Project Hamilton. Okay, some of you guys may be aware of this, a lot of us aren't, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it says central bank digital currency research, right? And then here's some of the specifics I want to point out. So it says open source software developed in a collaborative research project between the Federal Reserve of Boston and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Digital Currency Initiative was released. Right, way back then, right? But again, this is MIT, right? Massachusetts Institute of Technology. You can immediately draw that quant connection because we recently covered it and basically stated there is that particular connection. Now, you may be wondering, well, why is this significant? It's significant because they drew this up a while ago. And boy, did they ever draw it up. And why is it significant? Because again, that's supply and demand. If there's supply and demand for anything, whether it's CBDCs and so on, you can understand how significant this is. So you can go ahead and go to the block if you want to take more of your own deep dive into it, to verify it for yourself. Now, in regards to all of this, how we'll pound it home, if you will, when it comes to just that, the quant connection. Because Max, just because it said that a long time ago, doesn't mean that it's necessarily quant. Don't worry, we'll get there. So it states Quant, MIT, Boston Fed. You have, for instance, straight from Gilbert Verdian, right? So it states ODAP meetings are held each week, and we have separate meetings with who? MIT. It's going very well, and the scope of it is huge. Real pleasure to work with the likes of MIT and the companies that are part of the IEF. And then again, you see it again. Yep, we speak with MIT weekly. If that doesn't say MIT, I don't know what the heck does. He's verifying. On top of that, you have verification from who? The Digital Pound Foundation, which, oh, by the way, verified that that the United States was in fact working on a CBDC, a US-based CBDC, right, with the New York Federal Reserve. By the way, who worked with the New York Federal Reserve in the past for over a year plus? Yeah, Quant's very own Gilbert Verdian. But anyway, like it says right here, this was posted on December 22nd, only a few days ago, right? It says the Boston Fed and MIT announced today that Project Hamilton, Project Hamilton, remember that? Is now complete. The open CBDC codebase provides a resource to evaluate design choices and ensure that a potential future CBDC could serve the public's interest. Very, very interesting. So we go on. You have this, for instance, again, pounding a little bit more home in regards to our particular research. Quant CEO and Digital Pound Foundation Director Gilbert Verdian is set to address global CBDC implementation at FT's Digital Assets Summit next month. Who are some of the big players that are going to be there? The Bank of Canada, MIT, Quant, and Visa. Why? Because, guys, if you've been following us here at Crypto Talk now for a while, what do we cover when it comes to some of this? We show you key highlights, some of the Zoom call meetings that show Gilbert in a Zoom call where you see these particular big players in the frame. The CEO of the Bank of Canada, professors, I should say, not just people, from MIT, the CEO of Visa. Heck, Gilbert even has a background where he worked for MasterCard and countless other partnerships and so on. Might have skipped a frame. I did. All right. So it says, good to be back where we had many secure payments. Task force meetings, great discussion today on our work, digital assets, CBDC. Here's a recent paper from the Fed highlighting their thinking. Watch this space. Now again, look at the date though. Right? This dates all the way back to 2020. The point is, this has been years in the making. Last one. Straight from this guy, Kev. He says, hi, at Gilbert Verdian. Can you shed any light? For instance, we like what Visa has done with offline CBDCs. It fits with the retail CBDC need. This is a new technology in space, and everyone is doing their bit to create it. You're laying the infrastructure for CBDCs and making CBDCs interoperable for wholesale and retail CBDCs, domestic and cross-border payments. Wow. If you've seen, for instance, the XRP XLM coverage I did, where I mentioned Visa, that was a wow moment. This is a big wow moment for Quant, because if anything, you already realize how interconnected they are at scale that nobody else is doing. They're connecting the whole entire world, not just payments, everything that Web3 provides, you name it, there is the Quant connection. All right, a little bit more in regards to all this. So it states, for instance, and I'm going to blow this one up. So it states, the Boston Fed and MIT announced today, as in December 22nd, that Project Hamilton, Project Hamilton is what? It's what? Is now complete. Wow. Mic drop. Somebody take the mic, drop it. Or play that music in the background of this magic moment, if you want. All right. But the point is, guys, I mean, on a serious note, this is really, really significant to have that particular verification. Project Hamilton was something that was been worked on for quite a while now. Now you see it in complete, full circle, full fruition. If it says the open CBDC code base provides a resource to evaluate design choices and ensure that a potential future CBDC could serve the public's interest. OpenCBDC, to listen to this, to process 1.84 million transactions per second as Boston Fed MIT collaboration is complete. Wow. What's the connection? Who's behind it all? Who gets it working? Quant. Now, maybe wondering, well, how come price hasn't spiked? How come this isn't pumping like crazy? You gotta keep in mind, because they work on things, things have to be fully implemented. We have to go to the next stage, implementation. Then we get to adoption. But again, think about the quant connection. Think about the supply and demand that's going to kick in. Multiply that with, for instance, ISO 222 mandate that's going to happen in late March. Well, you can draw your own conclusion. It's going to be unbelievable, to say the least. Between that time period, in my humble opinion, the start of the utility run, the end of March 2023, and then going from there, the end of 2023, going to 2024, and so on. And by the end of 2025, it's just, oh my gosh, the amount of wealth that will be created is something else. And how do we know that crazy amounts of wealth will be created? We already seen it before with the last recession. Some people, like Coach JV basically pointed out, there'll be a lot of doom and gloom. But that is the time that you have, for instance, the most amount of millionaires and billionaires created during those time periods. That's what excites me. Should excite you. All right, a little bit more in regards to this. So it says OpenCBDC ODAP, Open Digital Asset Protocol, name changed SATP/SAT. It is no coincidence that it matches, basically. All right. I'll show you a little bit in regards to this because we did kind of cover this. All right. So it gives you a little bit of information how this dates back to, for instance, 2020. Open Digital Asset Protocol. It's an abstract. Basically mentions this memo describes the Open Digital Asset Protocol, ODAP. ODAP is an asset transfer protocol that operates between two gateway devices. The protocol is a description of virtual or digital assets held on distributed ledgers in an open and interoperable format. A session negotiation part and message passing flows between gateways connecting disparate distributed ledger technologies, DLTs. More in regards to this. This gives you, again, some of the technicalities of it. Secure Asset Transfer, SAT, same thing, right? Just different name. And of course, this particular one, right? There's, for instance, Hi Greg. This is from Thomas Harjano. It is basically the same, but the terminology is generalized to networks and systems, not DLTs. We had a suggestion about use cases not involving DLTs and blockchains. We thought that SAT ODAP has to address these types of non-DLT scenarios. By the way, I hope you found the meeting useful. The group was kind of deep into the issue of asset providers and so on. The point is, they already have made these connections, and if anything, is updating the likes of who? Let's face it, some of the people you see here. And shout out, of course, to Greg Lunt, another great quant person who covers quant on a regular basis. I highly recommend that you follow him. Now, I want to get to this next particular part. Just again to pound it home a little bit. And again, shout out to Greg Lunt. So you can follow Greg Lunt at GregLunt27. It says new. Gilbert Verdian spotlighted in an article for Retail Banker discussing his crypto and blockchain forecast for what? 2023. Here are his 4 biggest predictions for the upcoming year. Here is why this is significant. And I'm going to get right to the key highlights. So it says there will be agreement that the unregulated crypto experiment has failed. It says after Luna and FTX, governments and regulators will take action to protect consumers. On top of that, banks and assets will scramble to recruit blockchain specialists. Who's a blockchain specialist? Gilbert Verdian, 100%. Now you may think, well, no, Max, he's not a blockchain specialist because he made an operating system. An operating system does what? It literally allows 100+ blockchains to be what? Interoperable. at scale that nobody else is doing. On top of that, look at this. CBDCs will become politicized, but ultimately will prevail. 2023 will build CBDC infrastructure, valuing consumer protection, privacy, and what interoperability. Will build CBDC infrastructure. Who's building the CBDC infrastructure? It's Quant. Links between chains will be strengthened, improving trust. We'll see widespread adoption of stronger cybersecurity principles to bridge assets between networks. You already see that to begin with. You see the R3/4 bridge with XDC. You see some of the other bridges, for instance, that are out there. Ripple's XRP, Stellar Lumens, you name it. And that particular Quant connection, the API gateways are the soundest solution here. Hence Quant. Then, on top of this, like Greg Lunt mentions, Gilbert has consistently been ahead of the curve with his vision for digital assets, and this time should be no different. Keep an eye for increased regulation, heavy blockchain hiring by who banks. We already have seen that. By the way, shout out to Ripple. They've been hiring like crazy in a bear market. CBDC advancements despite heated discourse and increased interoperability. Very, very impressive. Well done, Greg Lunt. Another great content creator that pounds it home when it comes to Quant. Next, how about this? Validated sign of encryption. Every transaction that flows through the OVERLEDGER. This is technical stuff, but it's worth looking at. So it states right here, in regards to the security side of things of this particular OVERLEDGER network ecosystem. Governments, for over 20 years, protecting organizations and people from security threats, right? Cybersecurity is our company's DNA, according to Quant. Because the pillars of security are confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? But it goes on to mention these specific ones. There's experience, they have experience, Quant, in running payment and financial infrastructure, and critical national infrastructure for nations, and embedded these principles into every aspect of OVERLEDGER. If you're the US government, who do you want to hire? Experts that have multiple years experience, 20 plus years of experience. Who's the head of that? Gilbert Verdian. Who's had experience with the Federal Reserve? Gilbert Verdian. Who basically worked for the Bank of England in the past? Gilbert Verdian. Who created the ISO standard back in, I believe, 2014? Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm right on that. Gilbert Verdian. Who's the head of Quant? Gilbert Verdian. Anyway, so it states right here, to enforce confidentiality and integrity, Quant are used to validate with the option to sign and encrypt every transaction that flows through OVERLEDGER, every enterprise, client, developer, user, and application. MApp validates each transaction using their Quant linked to their MApp ID and DPI key. Key things here, no transactions being securely validated by Quant. No third party can view or tamper with the transactions. Think about how there was that backdoor crap that happened with FTT, or FTX, I should say. Written by one of those guys that is part of the, what's his name? Mr. Wang from FTX. And now, of course, he's spilling the whole beans on what happened with that. Let's go a little bit more. So it says OVERLEDGER for internal use and deploy it on-prem in their own cloud instance. Gives you this particular example. This allows for wholly new functionality with transactions and logic able to run across DLTs. It is the enterprise for OS and DLT. OS is an operating system for distributed ledger technology. You see how this is all broken down. Doesn't matter if it's just the customer service apps, it's finance apps, delivery apps, end-to-end apps. When we say that Quant is literally connected to everything, it is, but it also has utility that makes it connected to everything. There's a little bit more in regards to this breakdown. I could go more and more into it, and I don't want to. Because if anything, it's a lot to read, right? But it's good research if you want to take a particular deeper dive, like it says, the wider OVERLEDGER ecosystem. All right, let me get into a little bit towards the end of this. There's a little bit more in regards to some of this. I'm going to go ahead and highlight some key areas. So for instance, like you see right here, the OVERLEDGER is the network of networks, right? Scalable interoperability to unleash the true potential of blockchain. Find out how we've laid the foundations to interoperate distributed ledger technologies and networks to create new ecosystems of value on just that, the network of networks, Quant. Look at where Quant is. Look at all these particular networks. And by the way, these are not some Joe Schmo networks. Big name players. We covered the likes of what Oracle brings to that $9 billion contract from the Pentagon, right? They didn't get the full $9 billion. It was like roughly 4 different companies. Point is, the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, was a huge partnership with Oracle and a huge contract that Oracle landed. And Oracle has that quant connection. R3 Corda, we know how massive that is. But again, we talk about the likes of Swift, Ripple, you name it. But look how, for instance, Quant is part of all of that. A little bit more. You have, for instance, all these connections. Global finance, logistics. Come on, are we kidding? Logistics has a huge problem with what? The supply chain breakdown. Healthcare, IoT, and among others that you see here. All right. Last but not least, I want to show you this. Since Quant bottomed in June, it's outperformed 196 of the top 100 on CoinMarketCap at the time of posting this. Below is a visual of the top 200 showing percentage change since June. We are the green one. Blow it up for you. Yeah, and you see that representative there right in that particular graph. Second. Show you the next one. Here's part 2. Here's the top 20 performers for reference. And shout out to this guy, Les. I went ahead and followed him. He's been investing in crypto since 2017 and bought Quant at the ICO. Man, shout out to him. Load it up. Full screen it. Top 20 performers since June low from the top 200 on CMC, like I mentioned. There's Quant. Very, very impressive. All right, going to come back into the frame. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's quant coverage. For a lot of you guys, you didn't even listen to it, right? For instance, you're driving down the road and whatnot, listen to it on your Bluetooth or whatever the case be. I want you to understand, for the most part, these particular deep dives that we do. There's a lot of significance in regards to it because you can draw your own connection to why the likes of Quant and so on stand out when it comes to these other particular cryptos. And if anything, my key takeaway here is when it comes to the supply and demand of anything, those are the ones I want to be personally invested in. Now, while I can't give you official financial advice for anything, for me personally, when it comes to the supply and demand of just that, Quant, I'm even that much more bullish going into 2023. So be on the lookout for what Quant is doing and has done. If anything, recognize that if they're connecting the world through the likes of Web3 and what we have on the financial sectors, that they can do even that much more at scale that nobody else has ever done, probably in the history of mankind. What is the value of what that's worth going forward? How do you put an accurate price on that value? Thanks again for watching today's quant coverage. More than glad to bring it to you. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if you appreciate this particular coverage that we bring you, hit that bell notification. If you want more of this particular content, but from a live show, check us out every single day at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for Crypto Talk Now. And you all have a blessed day, everybody. We will see you on the next one.